of the Fort Nelson First Nation, as well as the Northern Territory of the Prophet River First Nation. Please be advised that today's meeting is available to the public to attend virtually, is being streamed and recorded. Are there any council additions to the agenda? Are there any staff additions to the agenda? Okay, thank you. Is there any public comment? Is there any public online that would like to make comment? No, thank you. Adoption of the agenda is in order, please. Moved by Councillor Ewing, second by Councillor Roper. All in favor? Opposed? Is there any opposed online? Seeing none, all that carries. There are no minutes. So that takes us right straight to reports, bylaws, Regional District Administration Report 04, which is the revised Regional Hospital District MOU with Northern Health. Staff, I'll turn it over to you.
Mayor, myself and Jay can speak to it. What you have in front of you, all we've done is just taken the previous MOU and the new proposed MOU, or I guess that proposed MOU, and did a bit of a comparison in terms of the both documents, and referred back to the original correspondence that the board provided to Northern Health regarding the MOU, and based on that correspondence, we're not suggesting as staff that it's the information in the MOU is adequate, but the areas were addressed on the MOU in terms of generally, I guess, in terms of the request from council. The question from or request from the board, I guess, is the question is it enough, too much, is it adequate, and that's the discussion for the board to have. We tried our best to do that comparison. You'll see on the document the markup that highlights and stuff showing the difference between the two to try to help aid the process of processing the information to see if it hits the mark or not. In terms of the process, come Monday, because Chair, we're in Prince George for this fall meeting. In my discussions with the other CAOs with the Northern Health, obviously there's always a hope that the MOU would be provided, or sorry, be signed by the various districts, but at the same time, this was only provided last week, and during a previous meeting with Northern Health, before the document was provided, it was indicated that they were hoping to get the document to us prior to that meeting. So I don't think there's a hope of thinking that they would get us some signatures on Monday, but I don't necessarily think an expectation, because feedback, obviously, from a timing perspective, we're pretty close to having that meeting. So I think the appropriate feedback would be done Monday.
Have we seen an agenda for Monday's meeting?
Maybe. I'm not going to say no because I might receive something, but
I don't recall seeing anything yet. And the only reason I say that, I'm just wondering if they set some time aside to actually talk about the MOU.
I believe, and I'm going to take a look because I'll chime in after and confirm if the agenda's here, because we did receive confirmation on the location because they updated the calendar request, so they might have attached it to that. So I'll stay tuned and I'll confirm here.
So how would you like to proceed with respect to that? I got all three in front of me. I can tell you I've read them 3 or 4 times and completely confused myself each time. So I really don't have I think I generally agree with you with respect to our request around the original clauses 1 and 2, which were really about understanding the timelines and the clarity around the capital requests and their time. They didn't. I think we were really looking for some dates, firm dates that they would come and meet us with respect to the capital, both the small capital and the, and it kind of changed the names of those things a little bit. And, but I was able to follow them through, and in Appendix 1, they give us that sort of annual timetable, planning timetable. And I think that's their attempt at saying, all right, there's 6 regional hospital districts. In this quarter of the year is when we expect to be able to meet with you to talk specifically about your capital needs and your expectations, although they didn't give us a date. So I guess we could try to flush that out, because our budget process is well into it by November and December, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yes. And
So is your read of it that our concerns around the old clause 1 and 2 have been generally satisfied?
I don't know if the word satisfied is the word I would use. Again, because
Clarified?
I'd say clarified and been addressed, right? They've
Yes.
acknowledged that there's changes to the document, right?
Right.
The question is, does it meet the needs of the board in terms of what you were requesting? Because I think and you and I, Jared, chatted a bit briefly this morning too, around when I look broadly at the board's concerns and some dialogue we had. These are some specific items in the document, but I think broadly there's also a concern around general correspondence and general communication between the board and the regional hospital district board and the Northern Health Board.
Yeah, that comes 13.
Yeah.
I was trying to kind of get rid of the low hanging fruit
Yep.
first. Clause 13 is the one that talks about meeting, how many times we meet, and I think they're kind of saying, yeah, we'll meet with you, but under our terms. And I agree perhaps with what Councilor Gerling had said earlier, that it didn't really meet our needs.
Mhm.
I think we'll get to that topic.
Okay, sure.
I just would like to, is
Go
1
through
and
it that
2
way.
at least, did they at least address it enough that we really don't need to do any more on Monday?
Based on what I see and read of it, I think so. But again, unless there's a flag on the play from yourself and the other
Yeah,
members.
because most of that is technical from the perspective of their budget and our budget and getting it all together at the same time.
Yeah.
So that's really, I think, a staff.
Yep.
The staff to staff issue. Did you have something you want to say about
I
clause
did.
1 and 2?
Yeah, so is this like 1 and 2 under intent? So just,
under.
right, okay. Excuse me. Okay, so my concern on 1 is the revised one is that upon receiving the non-RCG funding envelope from the province, Northern Health will set funding allocations for minor capital projects and equipment less than 100,000 and building integrity, blah, blah, blah. So the way I read that, so that's new wording. The old wording included that the funding envelope would be split between the 3 health service, like, yeah. So they've taken that out. So it's now the opportunity to have it split between the 3 is no longer written in the MOU. So that could mean that based on what Northern Health decides, it could go to all 1. Anyway, so that was a red flag for me. And then the biggest red flag for number 1 is that Northern Health will set funding allocations. So there's no consultation in there. And I don't know, maybe further along there's a reporting, because they've got lots of words there around reporting, but yeah. So there's no consultation. That Northern Health is just going to decide it, and it's no longer split between the 3. That was something that a red flag for me. On 1.
So the question is does it need to be specified on their item 1, or is it? Question is, does it need to be specified on the item 1, or can it be grouped into another area around that general communication around some of those concerns around the fact that it could be argued that there's a lack of, right? And I don't have that answer, and honestly, I mean, the process itself has been a challenging one, trying to understand it through the years in my role. As just because of how, just because of the format, right? And that communication with it, right? It's in some cases been a bit of a tick the box process, it seems, right?
Yeah. Well,
So again,
I would be hesitant to sign it, just myself, like would. There's like, there seems to me it's very heavy handed that we identify item 1 as being of concern because there's a lack of consultation, and yet now they've refined it further with a lack of consultation. And then, sorry, I did have a question before that too. On July the 31st, Kathy Elrick had responded back to our letter, and she had indicated that Mike Hoffner would be in contact with Scott Berry, as well as the CAOs in the other regional hospital districts to review the proposed changes prior to submitting to the Northern Health Board and above. Has he contacted you?
No.
So I would just like that to make sure that that hits the minutes too, that she indicated on July 31st in writing that Mike would be contacting Scott Berry, and it's now October 12th, and he has not been.
yeah, no, Mike, I mean, we did as a group of CAOs meet as part of the prep. When I say prep, it was, it was more capital discussion. It wasn't specific to the MOU. It was less than a month ago. I have the date off the top of my head, but it was all the CAOs within the regional, within the Northern Health area. So all the various board CAOs. And what was communicated at that time was that they were in the process of making some changes to the MOU, and we're hoping to get those the updated or those changes in the draft MOU to us prior to the meeting, which was this Monday meeting, and if not, possibly at the meeting being provided. But again, that's why I said earlier on, like, it wasn't there. I don't think there's a hope, but not necessarily an expectation that this document would be signed, because there's been no discussion. We received this document last week, and I think the same day as when I forwarded it on to the board.
Yep.
So I'm trying to remember, non-restricted capital grants less than 100,000. They just sort of listed them in the past anyways, right? They just listed them and brought it to you.
Mhm.
I think that's the way it was in Peace River Regional District too.
Yeah.
So they just listed them to you and they brought them, which is kind of them just saying, but I guess that's what you were saying all along, is that they should have been talking to us rather than just listing. And so they wrote down what they do rather than what the expectation is that we have some discussion. Because
Or some consultation.
well, the
like
first,
some,
I'm looking at.
why are we a hospital board if
Each
we don't have any input?
Each SHDA, so that's Health Service Delivery Area, will contact its respective RHD to share the plan by community.
Indeed. So we're asking
Okay.
for more
including
consultation, and they took out.
funding allocation by each community and feedback. So we want that put back in, essentially.
But we want it to actually happen.
And just, I don't want to look at the new one, because I think it's.
So I believe when they're referencing the HSDAs, they'd be referencing the 3 COOs for the
Yeah.
Northwest, the Northeast, and North Central. I'm not
Yeah.
sure what the term is. So that would be, for us, that'd be Angela DeSmit or her delegate, and then with our own RHD is how that was detailed prior to it.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if they moved it anywhere. That's part of my problem, is that if they took something out,
Yeah.
especially around communication, they might have moved it. Well, we don't need to put that anymore because we've got it over here in this other section, right? And so, but I'll ask the question there anyway. And if they say that, well, it's only because we moved it over to here, then I'll say, well, then you need to start doing it. Essentially, right? Because I've got the note that we'd like that put back in, and if not, then show us where it is in the agreement.
So
Yeah.
section 9 says that Northern Health will submit a summary of projects and or equipment costing under 100,000 to each RHD quarterly.
That's in the new agreement
Yeah,
under section 9.
section 9. It doesn't talk about upon receiving the funding envelope, they would consult. It's saying that they would submit a summary of projects in that grouping quarterly. Whereas it used to say annually,
And again, there's like no consultation, right?
but that could also
Northern
be,
Health.
yeah, sorry, that could also be once they're underway too, not when they're. in the
Yeah,
final
for sure,
stage.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, that's moved up in the new one. That's moved up to number 6. In mine, anyways. Okay, so that. So then the wording that you're specifically looking for around interaction and communication with that could go there at 6. In paragraph 6. Yeah, because even though it says that they'll submit a summary of projects, they're still deciding.
Yeah.
Without consultation. Okay. Okay, I was looking at it more from a timing perspective, and then, so that's good. Glad you pointed that out. Okay. 2, did you have anything there with 2? Yeah. Yeah, that's the whole definition. That's a whole section amendment that they put in at the back on how they're gonna deal with routine capital investments, and what's the other one called? Priority investments. So that whole section is new, and it comes out of that section too. So I don't know what it'll all mean, but because there's a whole lot of stuff there, so I'm hoping they'll explain it when we get there. I think, I hope not. This is the first time I'm going to one of these regional hospital board meetings. And so I'm interested to see what the process actually looks like, and whether there is an opportunity for real feedback, or whether it's just a one-sided session. And yeah, we'll see how it goes. I'm going down there with the idea that I think that we're gonna have the ability to discuss this at some length. And if they don't give us that opportunity, then we can respond accordingly.
Sorry, Chair, I did send a note to Michael last week when we received this to advise that we were attempting to have a discussion to review it. But I got it out of office. I gave you away with the death in the family, so I haven't tried to bug him since. But I believe that there'll be an opportunity to discuss this at the meeting.
Okay, then can we go? Did you have anything between 2 and 13? I think 13 is the one we really were after with respect to meeting annually with the board. So I didn't have anything else in there that jumped out at me as being something we need to deal with. But 13 says, make sure I'm in the right one. The new one says the Northern Health Board will provide the opportunity for each RHD to meet annually with the Northern Health Board. Did I jump ahead? Sorry, I jumped ahead. I need to go back to 12. The party, the new. Is it? Yeah. Yeah, it's the one where it says The parties agree to meet twice each year, discuss planning and funding of equipment and capital projects. Northern Health agrees to schedule an additional meeting with individual RHDs to discuss specific capital projects and operational issues as scheduled between the RHD chair and the CAO and Northern Health. Spring joint meetings will focus on capital business matters. Fall joint meetings will occur prior to Northern Health fall planning session and focus on preparation of the capital plan and feedback on strategic direction and preparation for the Northern Health, and generally held in Prince George. So,
Sorry, who pays then? Like, so if that meeting were to take in place in Prince George and you wanted to go, we would have to cover those costs, right? Not Northern
I
Health.
think that's the way it's been in the past.
Thanks.
What jumped out at me there was the operational issues, because I've always been under the impression that it was strictly capital that the health board deals with, but that clearly states that, but the operational issues will be clearly dealt with between the regional hospital district chair, which is myself, and the CAO ED and the Northern Health. So is that the CAO ED of Northern Health? Or is Northern Health mean the board? Like, I have a question mark about that.
I take it as a CAO of the regional hospital, so myself.
Oh, okay, so
That's-
add yourself. Okay, oh, so that's inclusive of us.
Yeah.
Northern Health is a question mark then.
Who with
As in
Northern Health?
whom at Northern Health?
Yeah,
Right?
Could be
So,
anywhere from Angela.
and to me, this is one of those discussions where I think it shouldn't just be the regional hospital district chair, it should be the entire board. Our board should have that opportunity to talk to them about.
Well, then they set the agenda, like it's to discuss planning and funding of equipment and capital projects. So I don't know, maybe there's somewhere else in here. that-
And operational issues.
So operational issues were in the old one too, right?
That's right.
But the difference between the old one and the new one, and again, in the absence of having a conversation to understand, don't know why they reduced it from meeting with the board to meeting with the chair.
Well, it just says Northern Health. So that's why it's confusing as to whether it's the board or whether it's just the CAO of Northern Health. So I can see if there's operational issues that we would like to bring up. Like very specific, not policy issues, very specific issues on operations. That's what it's talking about. That would be done with the administrator of Northern Health. But I think it needs to be clarified, because it gives us the ability to have additional meetings. Like really, that should be two, in my view, it should be two completely separate items and like two paragraphs separate of each other, because it's merging the two together, and and I think it's getting lost in the translation that operational stuff is potentially there. Which then that helps us to deal with the day-to-day stuff. And it would also, because it gives us the opportunity to talk to the CAO of Regional Health Board if we're not getting satisfaction at the local level, at Angela DeSmith's level, right? I mean, that's where we should, if we're going to deal with that sort of thing, that's where it should be dealt with. Staff to staff, or if we need to raise it up to the board and the staff, at least there's a place there for us to do it. If we can get that clarified, and then this clause allows us to, if we're not getting any satisfaction locally, to bump it up to this on a very detailed operation. The next one, 13, is where it's board. I think it should be board to board. And it says that Northern Health Board will provide the opportunity for each RHD to meet annually with the Northern Health Board as board meetings are held in their respective communities. Whoa. That doesn't even make sense, because they don't meet annually in each of the respective communities. So the whole paragraph, the whole sentence is sort of, help me with the word, that it doesn't
Well,
work.
There's no equity. And I think that that's the tack that you should take. Like, it's
Yeah.
not equitable. So if you live in Dawson, or if you're a hospital board in Dawson Creek or Fort St. John or Chetwynd or Tumbler Ridge, then you can meet annually with them because you can drive an hour and be at a board. We don't have that option. And they don't come up here. The last time they came up here was 2018. And that was like not a good year for me, but if I remember correctly, there wasn't even a public component. Like the community wasn't invited in to speak to the board either.
I don't recall in 8 years being at the Peace River Regional District where they scheduled a meeting board to board. So I don't think it's happening there either. Maybe it happened and I wasn't there, but yeah. So this is where I think we need to be asking for an annual opportunity to meet Northern Health Board, the Regional Hospital Board, regardless of where they're meeting. Right? It should just be an annual. There's only 6 regional hospital boards. Surely they can meet at least annually, board to board. Even if it's one of those, if it's not faced, whether they're coming here or we're going there or we're doing it online, there needs to be at least some way of doing it at least once annually. And it would talk about A and B, C, to receive any other feedback and input. I would like to see that clarified that it's including operational policy. Because it's board to board, right? We should be talking about policy. So what types of policy might that look like? It should be things like service level policy. The 3 I could think of anyway jump to my mind. Service level policy, access to service policy, so travel and accommodation, that should be happening. And then personnel policy. Like that's at the board level. You know, because we were chatting this morning, if they've got a 0.4 position here in Fort Nelson, they wonder why they can't fill it. Because, you know, what professional is going to come here for a 0.4 job? Whereas if we can talk at the policy level that, hey, you could put a full position here to hire somebody in, and at the board policy level, allow that person to be able to work back and forth up and down the highway, right? That's at a fairly high level. Then they pass it off to staff to let them do it, figure out a way to do it. But at policy level, it will allow transition between communities. That's one example I can think of. Then it makes some sense that they put a full-time position here, and that person, when they're not busy here, can supplement, right? Because they can schedule their time, can supplement what's happening in other parts of the Northeast region. It's a little bit telling but it's the only way I can think of an example of how personnel policy can be dealt with at the board level. That's the only example I can think of, unless somebody else has another one. But access to service, so, you know, understanding at the board level that travel is more than just that bus. Thinking outside the bus, outside the there's a Freudian slip. Outside the box, thinking outside the bus. You know, there might be other ways, like Villers and coordinating at. I forget where I heard it in all the discussions over the last year, but you know, one of the barriers to taking 10 or 12 people in a plane from here to Prince George is that, well, we can't possibly get all of their appointments scheduled. You can't coordinate it. Like
They won't.
Right, but that can be driven by governance, that they will. But if you can't have that discussion with them, you can't even broach the topic about you know how that would really help in the north. It would limit the amount of travel that needed to be done, and then now you can really focus on 1 or 2 days a week on how to get people to their appointments. So that's another example that you know you speak to it at the policy level rather than at the tactical.
So I guess one of the things that, as I'm hearing the discussion, I think one of the challenges with this MOU, it's a broad brush approach, right? It's the one shoe fits all approach for the Northern Health region, which is, from a geographical perspective, it's the largest health region in BC.
Yeah.
Right. And there's components of the MOU that doesn't deal with the specific needs of our area. So I mean, one thing possibly to keep in mind, because I don't know how much detail or how much information, or how much, I guess, dialogue can occur Monday. I really don't
Yeah.
know, right?
Yeah.
Because before it was like my one time, I think it was when I attended this, because COVID
Yeah.
interrupted meetings, and then I had an opportunity to attend one, maybe two. It was a rubber stamp approach at the time, right? So, because my point is, I'm not sure how much time they're going to provide. They'll have that dialogue. It might need to be required to have something after the fact or a
Yeah.
separate meeting. But I guess one thing to keep in mind maybe would be, is it time that you need 6 signatures on the same MOU, or is there a specific even component of the MOU that deals with an area, because it's not the same? Because the challenge again we have is, like, I think as a regional district board or a hospital district board, is the fact that we have different needs than if you're living in the Prince George or in and around that area.
Yeah.
Travel's not the same issue as we, because the hub, and we've heard it before, is centralized to the majority of it anyways, is Prince George Hospital, right? University Hospital. And if you're in Burns Lake or wherever you might be in that general area, it's a shorter drive to get to PG than it is for us even just to get to Fort St. John. So the needs of the other hospital district boards, and point is, the needs of the hospital district boards are different, right? So just something possibly to keep in mind as part of the dialogue, because
Yeah, no, I was using those, and those are not ideas that I think should be written into the MOU.
That's the
They're
reason for the
ideas-
meeting.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it's a reason why you want to talk board to board at a policy level.
no, absolutely.
Yeah, so that's what I think should be in
But-
here, is that annual meeting, board to board, to talk about these types of things, where you can now start doing specifics to your region.
Yeah, I know, and I recognize that. I guess my point is that, is even that component important
Oh,
to the other group? And also access to the boards it's a lot different too.
Yeah.
Right? They might have, I mean, to point this morning, I chatted with the CAOs, and CAO Martin is pulling a couple of CAOs together, had some questions. Again, a new CAO, I can't recall which regional district, asked some questions because she was confused by the whole process, as I was when I first started in this role. They're pulling the meeting together in their office in Prince George, right?
Yeah.
Well, CIOs, but that same dialogue could happen with some. Granted, we have virtual meetings that are a little easier today, but at the same time, you have a better dialogue when you're face to face sitting across the desk. So their needs, no matter what, in my opinion, are different. Even if you're getting into the detail, I know, and outlining the fact that it's a reason why it's important to have this policy information into the document.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I guess what we should be prepared for is that the other other districts might not have that same need even for that policy information, because for them there isn't a need, right? No, I'm just throwing it out there. That's all as a consideration.
And that's I'm trying to get this down to a few points.
Yes,
that we want to
absolutely.
get across.
Absolutely, yeah.
And then also, I'm meeting with 2 other chairs Sunday
Yes.
the evening before, right? So the chair of the Fraser Fort George, so that's
Yeah. Which is
Mayor Atkinson
Joan, yeah, sorry, Mayor
From,
Raxon, yes.
from Mackenzie, and then the Peace River Regional District.
Which is a
Chair.
likelihood there'd be a fair amount of alignment between the needs of those 3 regional hospital districts.
Right, and so that's 3 out of the 6.
Yeah.
Right, if I can get them at least sort of thinking along the same lines as we're thinking, then
Absolutely. Yeah.
either we make a charge at the meeting to deal with this stuff, or else they commit to us to deal with it at another
Yeah,
time.
no, absolutely. And that makes.
Okay, so
Yeah.
at the very least, can we not get, like on back to 13,
Yeah.
the opening
Yeah.
sentence, like, just so that we don't
Yeah.
ask for
Don't-
too much,
Yep.
or, get lost in the big scheme of however that meeting is gonna turn out. At the very least, can we not get are held in their respective communities removed? So then it would read, the Northern Health Board will provide the opportunity for each RHD to meet annually with the Northern Health Board as board meetings,
Or just period.
just period.
Strike.
Do
you think it's just that simple?
Well, for me, it's that simple to begin with.
Yeah.
I think we then have an opportunity to complicate the waters, but my fear is that if we go full hog into how we see it, it's just gonna get lost. So if we were to actually get that, then we can work on, okay, so what would we like that meeting to look like from our perspective? And we don't need to worry about anybody else's perspective. But then my concern goes because, it's throughout this whole MOU, every meeting that they agree to, they have an agenda already set. We haven't been consulted as to what that agenda might look like. So if we are successful in getting a meeting with the board, they've already said that we're gonna review the progress of implementation of the approved capital plan, to discuss matters of mutual concern related to the future priorities for the capital plan. So it's always all about capital, and to receive any other feedback and input. So I mean, that opens it up a little bit for us to give feedback, but again, like perhaps we could have some type of input into what the agenda for that meeting would look like.
So that's where I would also be looking for clarification around C to include operational policy.
Okay, yeah, because it's got to be more than capital.
Yes, that's because my fear is if we just do the first, they'll use A, B, and C to keep it directly capital. And then we're not able to deal with some of this operational policy, thinking outside the box stuff. It's the only.
But you could add C into, like you could change C, right?
Yeah, that's what I'd like. The new MOU should change C to some wording that everybody's happy with, that includes operational policy discussion.
And I need to just add for me, and again, I must have missed it when I first read it, potato. When I first read the in respect to communities, my interpretation was this board meeting, they would attend this board meeting in their respective communities. And I wondered, maybe that's just the way originally when I read it. And I'm probably the only one who read it that way, interpret it that way, but.
Because there is a place in here somewhere I read too that the CAO of Northern Health, and is it the board chair or something, will meet at one of our meetings annually. I read one of the things are in there, yeah. But not the whole board, just, yeah.
I just wonder if
That makes.
I'm sorry, that was my original interpretation, was that, right? So I guess the question before is maybe, do we just ask for clarity on that? That's all, just to confirm that we're not misinterpreting that.
Because now that you've pointed it out that way, that sentence makes sense.
Because we're interchanging the word board. Which board?
Yeah,
Is meeting.
it's as regional health board meetings are held in their respective
Respective
communities.
So that's why I said potato. It's interpretation.
Regional-
Nope,
No, because, and that's the original wording, like they
Yeah,
haven't changed.
they
that
haven't
at all.
changed
they
it.
haven't changed it, no.
Sorry, that's the original wording and they haven't changed it at all. And that was the interpretation of it the past 9 years that I've been fighting that one.
But if you put the word RHD in front of board, the second board, like the second word board there, read it that way. It means they would come at least once a year to our meeting.
Yeah, I don't read it that way, sir.
I could, and you know what, I can try to see if Mike has returned. I can just ask for some, just
Yeah.
confirm clarity on that one too.
Yeah.
What the intent of the word is. Because like I said, after you're talking, I'm like, oh, I missed the vote on this one. I interpreted incorrectly.
Yeah.
But I figured I didn't want to assume either, because we might go in there and say, we want to have it this way. Well, this is what it means.
Yeah.
And they did a storage in front of the board and then it's done.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I just.
But I
that's
can
just
still make the.
Same argument for everything else.
I can make the argument that way, that what is the interpretation of this? Is this, you're gonna come to our board when we're having a meeting? Or does this mean when you have one of your meetings in our district? And they'll say whatever they think it is, and then we'll say, okay, let's strike everything, everything after the word board. And you're just gonna give us one opportunity to meet and we'll figure out how to do that. Okay.
I wonder if there's just a fundamental question that can be asked And that is how Northern Health views RHDs, because my takeaway from this is that Northern Health's view of an RHD is to provide capital funding and to, and that's that level of partnership is capital funding in acute care facilities and hospitals, which I don't disagree. And I understand that all of your feedback and input is to have some discussion and be able to represent your constituents and your community on the service level aspect and operational aspect. But I think you need to does Northern Health see RHDs as being the appropriate groups to represent those interests? I'm not sure.
Or is it strictly capital?
Or is it strictly capital? And I mean, we could beat ourselves up about how to integrate this to this agreement, but if Northern Health fundamentally doesn't see RHDs as the appropriate bodies to represent that level of discussion, then that it could be a moot point, right? And so who do they feel is best? And in our case, in the NRM and NRHD's case, it makes sense because you're both. But in the other RHDs, it's a blend of individuals who may live in a remote community that has no Northern Health service whatsoever. Mm-hmm. So I'm just not sure what the right way is to kind of get that influence and assert that. And maybe it's not through this MOU, maybe it's through something else. But yeah, I guess it's just kind of understanding from Northern Health how they view RHDs, and do they see them as being the same bodies that can come to them and have those operational discussions.
So I would have agreed with you up at that they only see us as funders. Up until the meeting when the coalition went down and met. And I heard Kathy Elrick open the door to, we talk about operational stuff at the regional hospital fall meetings all the time. Now, so that, and I said, hold a sec. I thought you were only a funder. You were looking for the funders. Oh no, we talk about operational stuff. And then when I saw it, when I really read this MOU in real fine detail, I saw that little sentence in there about, we'll talk about operations. So then I went to the Hospital Act to look at the Hospital Board Act. And it says that the regional hospital district is responsible for funding, blah, 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 and operating hospitals. It's in there. So if we're not able to speak to them about operations, who the heck is, right? So it makes sense that we should be able to wedge operations in here in a bigger way, which then should happen at least annually.
It's an interesting topic, though, because exactly, because when we meet as CEOs to talk spring meeting and fall meeting, the only discussions that occur specific to the meetings is the capital plan. That's the only thing, right? Because that's what Michael's role is.
Yeah,
he arranges those meetings, right? And that's all there is. So it's probably a good clarity in terms of understanding, like even though it's written here and it's in the act, maybe it's viewed differently from Northern Health itself. But if it truly is, then fundamentally the preparation and everything for the meetings in my opinion, we need to take a different route. The scope isn't enough. The scope is very narrow focused, specific to capital versus anything else. Because we don't talk in that particular prep component. We don't talk about operations.
The scope of the MOU you're talking about.
Well, even the meetings, like when we talk about the fall meeting or whatever, I mean, we have as CAOs, we have no other discussion outside besides the spring discussions and what you plan for the fall meeting, but the discussions focus primarily around funding capital work and updates to the capital plan, existing work and future work. So it's just something, sorry, to keep in mind too.
Kind of all goes to my point about at no time do we have any ability to set agenda items. Like, I mean, I read it with a fine tooth comb, but I'm willing to concede that maybe I missed it. But I don't see any language in here that ever gives us the opportunity, other than some ad hoc items or whatever. Like we don't have the ability to ever meet with the board, firstly, but we don't that I could see that there's no ability for us to bring forth agenda items.
So that begs a question, what is Northern Health's view of the regional hospital?
Mm.
What's the role of the regional hospital district board? What do they view our role as? Like your role?
Yeah.
Right? Because it comes back to the whole relationship component, being part of the development of agendas, being part of the development of a plan specific to the community, which would, I think, be, well, which is what I'm hearing and have heard in the past from the board here, but does the Northern Health Board and Northern Health itself have the same philosophy?
Well, you know, that's-
Jaylene's point.
To Jalene's point,
Yeah,
right? And
but it's really-
there's most likely sort of a disconnect somewhere. There's either a disconnect in terms of the act and the intent is there, but it's not occurring, or it's just not there, period, right? Either way, it's not obviously hitting the mark appropriately with the regional hospital district board. And I think it becomes more pronounced, to my point earlier, based on where we're located and the fact that the services that we get are much different than what are provided in terms of proximity to services, right? And you go back to equal access, and we can go down that route.
So instead of having Northern Health tell us how they define it, maybe we should get further educated in terms of the Health Act and all of that, and we tell them. Right? Cause like,
Yeah, it's pretty vague. That word operation is in there, but the act is pretty big around that. And I haven't read it detailed enough where, because the next clause says if you're gonna implement what you're doing in clause 1, it can only be done in not conjunction with authority of the act. So I don't know if somewhere in the act then it strips that away and gives it
Yeah,
to the
so
health
it's-
authorities. I just don't know that yet. But you're right, educating ourselves will. But the first premise is the regional health or regional hospital boards will fund and operate hospitals.
mhm.
And then it goes on from there. So I think there's a wedge there for us to drive and you know, so at 13, I guess I can come across from a questioning perspective as opposed from a, hey, this doesn't work from us perspective, until they say it is the way we'd originally interpreted it, which is they'll meet with us when they come here.
Questioning and understand. basically.
Yeah, question. And then if that's the way they say it, we'll say, well, that just can't work.
Then we can't sign it.
We can't
If we
can't
can't
sign
even
this
meet with the
because
board.
we've got to be, we need an annual meeting with the board to talk about these things.
And remember, we were told that the individual board members are not representatives of the area.
That they come.
They are first and foremost, they are serving at the pleasure of the board. So we have absolutely no opportunity to share anything directly with the board. None.
Yeah, when you ask for a meeting with any one of them, they defer you to the board chair
Mhm.
every single time. They won't take a meeting individually. They defer you directly.
Well,
to
even the information that we shared with the two people that because they
Yeah.
came from the northeast, we were told that that's not appropriate.
Yeah.
So there has to be some sort of a mechanism for us to speak to the board. And then, I mean, just if you go along to 14, then it says that the RHDs will have the opportunity to meet with the Northern Health Board Chair and Chief Executive Officer during the course of the NCLGA Government Association and UBCM, blah, blah, held each year to discuss the capital plan and related issues. So technically, you could go there and meet with them and you still can't technically talk about any operational issues. It's just got to do with the capital plan and any issues related to that. So again, they're saying, oh yeah, see, we have all of these abilities for you to meet with the CAO, the board chair, but we have no ability to set those agenda items. Not to say we haven't, because I know we have, but technically they could hold us accountable to this agreement to say, no, we're just talking about capital and related items. So I think that needs to be taken out to discuss the capital plan and related issues. Why is that meeting at UBCM or at NCLGA related only to that?
Yeah.
Why can't it be open? Why can't we set the agenda? Like, I'm not saying that we should surprise anybody, but if we get like a meeting, if we want a meeting, there's lots of time for us to say, and here are the agenda items that we would like to talk about, and then Northern Health can say, and here's what we want to talk about, right? So I don't think it has to be a surprise, but it's an opportunity for local government to talk to the board chair and the chief executive officer.
I got it.
And then one
You-
say, sorry,
I was gonna say 15 is almost the same. It brings it down to the chief operating officers and the executive director of capital. Will attend our RHD meetings, again, only to talk about capital and other ad hoc items as requested, so.
and does that, so then I was a little bit confused with that wording. So is it ad hoc items as requested or their attendance at a meeting as requested? So we have to request for them to attend, or like that wording is confusing to me.
Does the as requested mean ad hoc item, refer to ad hoc
Or
items
the
or the
meeting,
meeting?
attendance
or
at the meeting. Yeah, and then I just thought, because as we had spoken about earlier in, I think right at the beginning of our tenure is, or maybe it was the last council, I can't remember, so sorry, but we had asked that we had brought that MOU and all of the responsibilities of Northern Health, like this meeting, that meeting, and did it actually take place? Remember, we did that and Trevor did a presentation. Was that this council or the last council? I can't remember, and I don't think it really matters, but just as a little background, is like, so then this MOU, we need to do the exact same thing, because, and then that takes capacity away from what we have to be doing as local governments, right? But I think it's been shown that we have to hold Northern Health accountable for all of these meetings or whatever it happens to be, because if we just let it slide, then it's not gonna happen.
Yeah, we have to make them happen.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
you know, I'm worried about the capacity for us to all of a sudden be taking on all of these things, to holding people accountable to MOUs that are signed, thinking that, you know, we'll do our part, you do your part, but now we have to,
Do our part.
and, well, yeah.
But we've got some processes in place that are doing, right? We've got capital requests, CT scanner, you know, there are things ongoing. You've got the community health board that's, I'm just lost the name of it. I'm
Community
sorry.
steering
Steering committee. You know, and so there are issues coming from there for us to talk to them about.
Oh, no, but it's just, I
Yeah.
just meant this MOU. It's like,
Oh.
okay, so now Northern Health, the chief operating officer and the executive director is to attend one meeting per year as requested. So now, as a board, we have to make sure that we request that.
I got
It's
you.
not
I'm
just
following.
automatically gonna happen. Or, you know, the meeting at NCL or GA or UBCM, or, you know what I mean? So it's, yeah.
Yeah.
And the fact that they present this, because there was a time when they weren't presenting anything to us until they wanted money, right? So all of those pieces we have to be on top of.
The last thing I wanted to say was, with all the potential changes in this year, if we should give them 2 years, or if we should go for a year and then review see how it worked. Like, is 1 year not enough? Like, if we're able to actually make some changes, because they've made a few changes themselves, right? Which I'm sure is whack-a-mole. And, you know, they may end up not, because we potentially, I mean, I guess there's trust issue here, obviously. We're worried about them not living up to, I mean, maybe it's too much all at once and we should just ask for another review of it in the year.
Yeah, I was thinking as I heard you chatting too, I just wonder, I mean, there's a lot of information that could get thrown at the table and go down a fairly large rabbit hole on Monday.
Yeah.
Maybe the question is can you circle back and have a discussion and meet specifically about the MOU and walk through it line by line?
Yeah.
request from Northern Rockies Regional Hospital District with obviously the hospital districts in.
Yeah.
And then that helps, I think, understand some of the philosophies of it also. So walk through it, talk about intent, interpretation, make sure there's clarity. Because one thing that hasn't happened, and from what I've been exposed to anyway, and is the board hasn't had, I mean, besides a document being put in front of them to review, there actually hasn't been any discussion from that I'm aware of from Northern Health and the board regarding the document in
Yeah.
terms of what's the intent of it, what's the purpose of it, fundamentally, what's the reason for even having it, right? And as the discussions occurred, and because again, when you talk operational concerns and operational policy, I mean, for me, the little light bulb goes off to say, well, the only time we're talking to CAOs is specific to capital, and the individual we're dealing with is the executive director of capital planning and facilities. So there's, I mean, if there's based on the discussions occurred today, there's a huge gap in what the expectation is of this board and what's in here. And the question goes back then to your comments, Jaylene. And I think, I mean, we could tie up a lot of Monday could be just about the
Sure could be.
MOU, and I checked, I don't see anything like the meeting request and confirming the location of the meeting, basically said agenda to follow. I'll do a search in my emails just in case I missed, because I get a lot of them, but I don't think I have. So, but my point is that the agenda is going to probably have a small component on there around the MOU. Where you can probably take up almost a full day if you really want to go through it line by line and have these discussions.
If we don't get an agenda before Monday, I'll be speaking to that too.
Well, even like that's totally unacceptable.
Sure,
Like you need
absolutely.
time to prepare. Today's Thursday and you don't have the agenda for like, so how are you gonna know? Like, how are you gonna prep for that meeting? This is a really important meeting. Like, how can you prep for something if you don't have an agenda? Like, I think that's just, that blows me away. But my point was, I was gonna start talking about is, until you said that.
Sorry. to take
Oh,
that
sorry,
back.
we're being recorded too. Where was I going with this? Oh, yeah. What happens if we don't sign it? Do we know? Will
I know
they
that-
pull services?
I
or-
know that East
What
River
happens?
Regional District didn't sign 1 year because they were upset with the capital that was, I'll say, dictated to them. And they didn't sign. And it was kind of a big deal. They kept coming back and coming back and coming back to the East River Regional District to deal with the issues at hand so that they could get us to sign. But yeah, there was no threats or of service disruptions or anything like that from them. They just sort of carried on. So it's an MOU, right? It's just a memorandum of understanding. It's not a legal contract between us. So
Don't sign it.
what if they capitulate and then give us everything we're looking for? But I tend to agree, I mean, just from the discussion that we've had, because my sense of just a little bit of discussion I've had with some of the other chairs is that they're not looking at this MOU the way we've looked at this MOU. And they may not be looking to this meeting to be any more than just being dictated to with respect to the capital that's coming their way. And I guess I'll see Sunday night whether there's any appetite to try to make this big, because really the whole advocacy thing that's been happening around the province has been aimed at better communication with the health authority. So I'm suspecting that if I can get at least 3 of us to speak, towards this, that maybe there might be others that come along. So we'll see how it goes. Or we get an opportunity to go at another meeting at another time to talk specifically about the MOU line by line.
And the other piece, and you and I chatted about earlier this morning, was the issues on the table are issues no matter what.
Yeah.
If Northern Health isn't the organization that you need to go to deal with how to resolve those issues, most likely it's Ministry of Health. And we had to change direction, but the issues are still the issues. But I think going through the process to determine that will be part of this, right? And I agree. That was my point earlier on our location and one size fits all approach with MOU. There's organizations, most likely, or regional hospital districts that just don't have the same issues that we have, and as such are happy probably just to talk about cap, and that's it. Fundamentally, right?
Well, they're pretty much all talking about service levels.
Yeah.
Right, regardless of where you go, they're talking about service.
All right.
Yeah.
I need to. I think I have an awful lot to, to at least put on the table in front of everybody if they give us any time. If they don't, of course, then I'm going to be speaking to the agenda issues that I feel we need to talk about there. If they do give us time, and there's more here than what they want to talk about, then perhaps we'll get another meeting. But we won't sign the MOU until we have this discussion with them. And hopefully the others will see that as well and commit to maybe another meeting for another time to really talk about it in detail. That's going to be my approach on Monday, our approach, I guess, on Monday.
So before we move on then,
Yeah.
so this MOU, the meeting that's happening on Monday, where does it fit into this MOU? Like,
It is the fall meeting where they talk
Okay.
about
Right.
fall
Gotcha.
meeting for
Yeah.
capital.
Okay.
That's what this meeting is.
right,
Yeah, just
capital.
capital. Right. So we'll see, but they sent this MOU up. They want us to sign it or did they want us to talk about it? at
No,
the fall meeting?
typically the MOU, it's my understanding, it was again, it was a little bit different because the last one was signed by them sending it around the courier to
Yeah.
each individual regional hospital district board to be signed. And that's a different issue, Jay, I
Yeah.
know.
Which tells you how matter of fact they take it.
But typically the MOU is sent out prior to the fall meeting. It's reviewed. There's minimal changes, if any. Because it says here, originally adopted in 2003, and then it's every second year this is done, and then it's signed at the when the chairs are at the meeting in the fall meeting in Prince George. That's the intent. Again, the understanding this time around, I haven't had an opportunity, I haven't been able to connect with Michael since it received this one here, was they were hoping to get it out, and the hope is to get it signed, but I don't think, given the timing component and the changes, that there's an expectation, but that's just my interpretation of the discussion.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we have an opening here because it says the fall joint meetings will occur prior to the Northern Health Board fall planning session and focus on preparation of the capital plan and feedback on strategic directions in preparation for the Northern Health Board planning. And
Where are you
we'll be
reading that?
on under 12, page 3 of the MOU, and item 12.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
it's
under
B,
B, yeah.
under B.
Yeah.
So actually, if we had time to prepare something, because it says that it's feedback on strategic direction, so we could be providing what we think the strategic direction should be for our area.
Yeah.
So like the CT scanner, and we might even do, I don't know whether we would submit a report on how much human capacity and financial resources that we have put into advocating for equitable access to healthcare services in our region throughout the past year or years. Like, be prepared with something, because like we're just not there asking for stuff. We're actually committing financially and
That comes absolutely back to your initial point of not being able to have direct or have input in on the agendas.
yeah,
If they
or
ask us
even
for
get them
input-
in a timely. Holy-
So input on the agenda would allow us to present a report, perhaps. Yeah, if we had one. Okay. Conscious of time, it's 10 after 1. I see that, and you guys probably gotta go back to work. So I'm gonna bring that to a close. I think we've got some direction, and I certainly thank you for all of you for your input on this. I'm all marked up. We have some correspondence here for information. the 2024 Q1 package, which essentially talks about, I guess, the money that they've collected and spent in the first quarter of. So I think we just need to receive that for information. Sorry? Oh, did we lose? Brenda had to leave? Okay, so then we'll just, we'll hold that over then to the next meeting. Okay, then, we can't do anything else then but adjourn. So we are adjourned. Thank you very much.
Are we doing this? The viewpoint?
Yeah, I think
Today is the 12th, right? So-
today is the 12th.
So we can't call this for